I think Joe Biden thinks that Hillary Clinton is a Republican. Why do I say this? He just gave another one of those blowhard speeches. I want to say last night. It might have been the night before. He just gave another, I guess it's a rallying call. Sorry, I know it's windy. But he gave this blowhard speech about election deniers. And he's still going on about January 6th.
It's a lie that fueled the dangerous rise in political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. Even before January the 6th, lies of conspiracy and malice, lies repeated over and over to generate a cycle of anger, hate, vitriol, and even violence. And say there's no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America, whether it's directed at Democrats or Republicans. No place, period. No place ever.
They're really going to die on the sword. He really, truly believes that this is the key to victory. Ugh. That's how they're acting. This is the key to victory. If you want to win, January 6th, January 6th, January 6th.
There's something else at stake. Democracy itself. I'm not the only one who sees it. Recent polls have shown that overwhelming majority of Americans believe our democracy is at risk, that our democracy is under threat.
He believes that Hillary Clinton is a Republican. He has to. He gave a whole speech talking to her. This is just January 6th is just a threat to the democracy. Anything that they disagree with is a threat to democracy. You say something, they call it misinformation. You're intentionally trying to mislead people. You say something that they don't think you really mean, it's disinformation. You're unwittingly saying something to mislead people. This is what they're doing, and this fool got up there and did an entire speech on it.
We the people must decide whether the rule of law will prevail, whether we will allow the dark forces that thirst for power put ahead of the principles that we've long guided us. You know, American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election.
Applying for a job and getting 66 million letters of recommendation and losing to a corrupt human tornado.
He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree. Al Gore won that election. I think he won it anyway.
Troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
He did an entire speech on election deniers and MAGA Republicans. Extreme MAGA Republicans, they're so extreme. They don't believe anything. So if their propaganda doesn't work on you, you're extreme. Because you should just believe. All you have to do is believe.
Whether the American system that prizes the individual, bends towards justice, and depends on the rule of law.
It's literally, on one channel, he's talking about election deniers and them being a danger to democracy. And on another channel, Hillary Clinton is denying elections and talking about the threats to democracy. She's being the threat to democracy. So, it's almost as if she's gone completely against their own strategy, or she just wasn't made aware of it. Because he's talking about her. They're not only denying 2020 elections, where I think I won, 81 million is the thing, you know. But she's over there denying the next election, 2022, 2024. Yeah, that's what she's doing.
MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of past elections, but elections being held now and into the future. Instead of waiting until an election is over, they're starting well before it. They're starting now.
I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. And I know this group really understands what I'm about to say. I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.
It's estimated that there are more than 300 election deniers on the ballot all across America this year. We can't ignore the impact this is having on our country.
Can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real thing.
What I'm scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
President or elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do. We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object because people are horrified.
You believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
But there absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
It's a very tainted election, and in that sense, it's illegitimate.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
Stolen emails, stolen drone, stolen election. Welcome to the world of unprecedented Trump.
Rise to object to the fraudulent 25 Florida electoral votes.
I must object because of the overwhelming evidence of official misconduct, deliberate fraud, and an attempt to suppress voter turnout.
It is signed by myself on behalf of my diverse constituents and the millions of Americans who have been disenfranchised by Florida's inaccurate vote count. The Supreme Court, not the people of the United States, decided this election.
Speaking to a Democratic group in Chicago Tuesday, he made it clear he thinks Al Gore was the winner.
By the time it was over, our candidate had won the popular vote, and the only way they could win the election was to stop the voting in Florida.
Constantly shifting vote tallies in Ohio and malfunctioning electronic machines which may not have paper receipts have led to additional loss of confidence by the public. There are still legitimate concerns over the integrity of our elections.
I agree with tens of millions of Americans who are very worried that when they cast the ballot on an electronic voting machine, that there is no paper trail to record that vote.
The members of Congress who have brought this challenge are speaking up for their aggrieved constituents, many of whom may have been disenfranchised in this process.
It's damaging, it's corrosive, and it's destructive. And I want to be very clear. This is not about me.
While he's saying she's a threat to democracy, he's just not calling her by name. You can literally play her doing it. Matter of fact, I'm literally going to play her doing it after everything he says. Who does this work on? This can't work on anybody. Nobody believes this. Nobody believes there's a threat to democracy by saying, yeah, I don't agree that this last election was on the up and up. Uh-oh, you need to go to prison. A threat to democracy. Violence, crime stats being at all-time high, no threat. Inflation, literally devaluing the dollar, not a threat. The economy And spending, $4 for a couple of eggs, not a threat. I disagree with you, Joe Biden. Threat! This is their go-to as they're on the verge of losing their seats. I mean, in epic fashion. They're still gonna go with January 6th. That's all they have? I mean, I guess if you really think about it, he can't defend his record on any of the things that I mentioned. You can't defend the record. I created more jobs than anybody ever in the history of ever. Yeah, because there was a pandemic that we were coming out of. And there were a lot of states that were staying locked down. And they waited until you won. Uh-oh, I'm a threat. And then they opened back up, said, all right, you guys come back to work. Boom, just like that, created the most jobs in the history of ever and ever. These people, I've even had comments. Go, who the Capitol Police could have voted for. I don't even know what that means. I assume it has to do with January 6th and them believing that Capitol Police died. I assume that's what it means. But it didn't happen. No matter how many times you say it, Mr. Mark or whatever your name is. Police didn't die on January 6th. You guys are holding on to something that has zero value in American politics and zero value with Americans at home. That issue is now under 20, meaning there are at least 20 things that the American people find more important. No matter how many times you guys repeat January 6th, insurrection, democracy at risk, it's not going to make it true, especially when your side is doing it while you're making the argument. Everything's not a threat to democracy. You want to know what a threat to democracy really is? Spending $67 billion and not questioning where the money's going to defend another democracy. Being at war without declaring war, that's a threat to democracy. That's a threat to a couple of democracies. So what you guys think are threats, actually I don't even believe they think that they're threats. I think they just want to declare them a threat so they can shut it up. That's what this is. That's what this is really about. These declarations. You're a threat, you're a threat, you're a threat. Lock them up. Ship them off to Siberia. I mean, that stuff doesn't work. It's 2022. You guys using these tactics and colluding with social media companies to shut people up. Do you think you can do that forever? How long did you think that was going to last? I know Elon's public enemy #1 now, but how long did you think that was going to last? You sit down with competitors. You sit down with Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and whoever else you guys were sitting down with. Even LinkedIn. Sitting down with social media sites saying, this is not good news. Let's keep that one out of the news. Can you guys do me a favor? Suppress that story. We don't like that one. That's not good. How long do you think that was going to last? And now, as you're about to be out of power, you're just going to say, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. Don't believe anything that's about to happen over the next 2 years. Don't believe anything. This is dangerous. Misinformation. Mary Poppins. Oh my God.
We must, with an overwhelming voice, stand against political violence and voter intimidation, period. Stand up and speak against it.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them.
We don't settle our differences in America with a riot, a mob, or a bullet, or a hammer. We settle them peaceably at the ballot box. There's an alarming rise in the number of our people in this country condoning political violence.
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
How long did you think this was going to last? Where you could just censor people and arrest them and throw them in jail indefinitely? That's what happens when somebody thinks they're in permanent power. They can just shut up opposition. Arrest them, throw away the key. No, not here. They need pardons, they need book deals on all the people who were locked up who didn't do anything violent. If you did something violent, you should be in jail. If it's just trespassing, though, you should serve trespassing time. Which last time I could tell, you get out on trespassing pretty easily. Within 48 hours, not 2 years. And idiots, just because they agree that the people shouldn't have gone into the Capitol, are celebrating locking people up for years who didn't do anything. Again, if they got into a physical altercation with police, lock them up, put them away. But then when you look in Philly, and you look in Los Angeles and Chicago, and people are shooting at police and getting right back out within 48 hours, you got to start wondering what's going on here. The same people who don't want to talk about crime only want to talk about it when it's Paul Pelosi getting popped in the head with a hammer. Yeah, that's the same Paul Pelosi who almost killed somebody in a DUI a couple months ago. Now that story was squashed, completely squashed. No mugshot, no anything. They didn't want to release They didn't want to release dash cam footage. We didn't want to talk about it. Shut it down. And now here we are 2 months later, something else is happening to the guy. Instead of saying, oh man, this old guy got cracked in the head with a hammer, we're going to try to use it to somehow pivot and say Republicans are responsible for this. They've made fun of Nancy Pelosi for years. Okay, what does that have to do with him getting hit in the head with a hammer? That's what you guys are doing right now? Really? The people who celebrated a guy getting up on stage with Donald Trump. That's okay. Because you don't like the guy. What does Kwame Brown always say? It's all about who we like. But that's okay. We're just going to call everything disinformation and threats to democracies. Except for inflation, economy, crashing the energy sector. That stuff's not a threat to democracy. That's not a threat at all. That's good policy, good sound policy. Idiots.